a bit late, but it's going to be a light talk and only 50 minutes. Then we can have beer. So this is a little fun project of mine. After last month's search engine, this is going to be a bit more fun, not so dry. I've been working on it quite some time. 25 years ago, my dad brought home an Amiga 1000. I don't know how old you are, but quite old. So this thing was incredible. You could paint, program, play, listen to music, and you could look at bouncing checkered red and white balls. And most importantly for me, you could talk. Let me show you how that sounded. And remember, this is 25 years ago.
The focus isn't on the window.
Can you hear it?
No.
Turn the volume up.
Volume full.
Oh. It's too loud, this thing.
You do the voice first? I could just do that.
Well, I hope you can remember if you had an Amiga. It sounds quite good actually for being that old. So back then for me, I was 9 years old. The question was, can it listen? And my dad said, no. And this flabbergasted me because how can a computer just talk and but not be able to listen? Shouldn't be a problem, right? Talking, listening, same thing. And actually I wasn't the only one who thought that. The Star Trek crew agreed with me on that. Let me show you that for a second.
Just use the keyboard.
Oh, whoops, sorry.
Please. Computer? Computer? Hello, computer. Just use the keyboard. Keyboard. Oh, great.
Of course, it then goes off to hack this really old computer and so that it designs a new aluminium alloy. Okay. So what I wanted as a kid was to be able to command the computer just using my voice. Sadly, my skills regarding computers were a bit limited back then, and the processors weren't fast enough. When I hit puberty, processors were fast enough. I could program a little, but somehow my interest shifted away from talking computers.
I suppose the listening program didn't need the high frequency response either.
So, around 25 years later, puberty survived, better computer skills, I tried again. I thought about if I would talk to a computer, how do dialogues work? So if I talk to you, how does this work? It's quite complicated if you look at it, but I just simplified it down to dialogues are basically state machines. So when we talk, we reach a new state, and from there we can go on to other discussions, topics. We might go back to an old state and discuss.
Warp 9, energize.
Yeah, exactly. Crash, black hole. So this is in essence what James is. James is a dialogue state machine written in Mac Ruby using a speech interface. And I'm going to show a demo, but just this one dry slide maybe. This is the state machine behind it. The idea is that I have a very simple dialogue system where we have James who can be away, like waiting in the background, having a glass of champagne ready. I can say, good night, James. I'm going to retreat for the night. And then he goes away. Or I can say, James. And then he's awake. And then I can talk to him about some things. And then I can plug it. So I can plug in some dialogues that you made. So you can plug in a time dialogue, which you can enter if you say, what time is it? So now if you say, what time is it? We're in a new dialogue. We're talking about time. And he's going to tell me what time it is. Yeah. That's it. If I say, thank you, James, we're going back to this awake state. It's not quite correct. It would be okay. Yeah. Okay, let's just look at the demo. To give you a little context, I wrote this system 5 years ago. I had a Mac Mini and a few microphones in my house, which were directed at the sofa and the bed and the kitchen. And so imagine yourself lounging on the sofa, having some interesting thoughts, and saying, hey James, what time is it? Or maybe, James, when is my next train going? Do I have to hurry? Or tell me a joke. Or something like that. Play some music, play some romantic music. Yeah? A bit more impressive than the clapper. So, what you're also going to see in the demo is that speech recognition is a hard problem. That's why it took so long. Okay. So if you want to run James, you just say gem install James in MacRuby. So you have to do rvm use MacRuby. And then you tell him something like that. Hey James, this dialogue. So you tell him a number of dialogues which you want to use. Or you can just say, I'd like the reminder dialogue, stocks dialogue, match gapel dialogue, time dialogue. You know these curly braces, right? Just expands that. So let's try it. Yeah, it's telling me I'm using all these dialogues for our conversation. I hope it works with this noise thing here. James? Are you there, James? James? James. Yay! James. James. Actually, he said sir. You just didn't hear it. What time is it?
It is currently 21:02.
Go back. I need some time alone, James.
Of course, sir.
James. James.
Sir.
Does anyone have a question for James? Like, am I going to find the love of my life tomorrow? Anybody? Sorry?
Will I make my tram this evening, James?
When are you going?
Will he make his tram tonight? So, I have a question. I have a question.
Most likely.
Anybody else have a question?
Will I meet the love of my life tonight?
Tonight. In this room.
Anything's possible.
Okay, let's give it a go. Again.
My sources say no.
We're good.
I think your fiance is probably happy about that.
Go back.
Sir.
Of course, you can attach web services, everything. I tried to attach Wolfram Alpha, tried the 3
No, I
gems,
was going to say.
but the 3 gems are like lousy, and I didn't have the time to code it up, but you could do it. So,
Google queries? Google queries?
yeah, didn't think
You
about
haven't
that.
tried? Yeah.
Yeah, you can do it. Send me a pull request, please. Alright, so, or you could say, how are my stocks?
IBM has moved plus 2.12%.
How does it pronounce foreign languages?
Well, you need
You need to tell
what
us.
I did. This voice is really good. I downloaded it from Acapella. They make specialized voices, and they're really good, much better than the inbuilt ones. So this is the British Peter voice, but you can have French voices and Swedish voices and everything. Yeah,
Wow.
you can have Claire. Bonjour. Yeah. You want to hear about the implementation? Yeah, well, maybe quickly.
Yeah.
Very quickly. The implementation is super simple with MacRuby. 5 years ago it was a pain, but now I have to say yeah, so you instantiate a speech recognizer, you set a delegate, which is self, and the speech recognizer, as soon as it recognizes something, is going to call the speech recognizer method, which uses this special named params thing. Not so important. And what I'm going to do is just put what he heard. And then you tell this recognizer, hey, these are possible commands. Only answer to these. So only recognize these. And then you say, start listening. And that's it. So you can very easily build some recognizer. And the output is much easier even. You say, and a speech synthesizer, alloc init, with this voice identifier. This is the best Mac OS X voice at the moment. And you say, start speaking string hello. And then it says, hello. Well, Alex says hello. And that's the whole implementation, basically. I mean, not of James, but of how you get this system talking. Yeah.
I guess it's a bit off topic of your thing. How will it deal with inflections as far as, so James and James, like the question mark at the end? Does it detect
It does.
that?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Actually, it listens also to it. So if you have a question mark in your command, you should say James. Yeah. Yeah. So
if you wanted to use part of the statement or part of the command to use that as part of its response to you, like you're recognising fixed expressions there, but can you recognise things that have arbitrary words in them?
The problem is, you can't. 5 years ago I could, but that was because I used the Carbon interface. The MacRuby exposes the Cocoa interface, which doesn't.
Doesn't do that.
So you have to do something like all these each do here, 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 here. Recognize.
So you've got to give it a dictionary of all the possible things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's still recognized pretty badly if you're in a noisy environment. Today, when I tried to prepare the demonstration, there was a huge bird outside the window, and it was always chirping. And this really upset James, because it's a quite, how to say, an explosive, which is used for recognizing speech. So just one thing, MacRuby is great, and CMU Things is for the more professional speech recognizing freaks. But it's a pain to get running, but if it runs, it's perfect. But you really need to know the theory of speech recognition if you want to use this. If you're interested, give it a go. Right? Just one thing. I'm looking for dialogues. I have some ideas on the James wiki. If you have some ideas what you could do with this, I mean, what I showed you is very simple, like same time, but you could have huge dialogues and requests to the timetables of trains and telling you when the next train goes and everything. Or Wolfram Alpha, which tells you when is the next holiday, stuff like that. And if you even have to code dialogue, please send me a pull request. And that was it.
Well, thank you everyone for coming. Oh, let's go to the pub. Firstly, thank you